Did you know you can configure WordPress to use SSL without needing a plugin? You can. I'm Charlie, your WordPress expert, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So let's start with some of the basics. SSL is a protocol that encrypts traffic between or creates an encrypted tunnel between your client and the server. It identifies the server as being what it says it's being. And it does that because certificates, SSL certificates, are registered through signing authorities. The idea of using SSL is to reduce the possibility that the connection can be spoofed, that your data is being sent to another server that is purporting to be your website but really isn't. And it's a little more difficult, considerably more difficult, to actually break that connection and snoop the traffic that's going down it. So that's why SSL is important. The other reason that SSL is important is because Google will penalize your site if it's not using HTTPS. It did that a couple of years ago now, and we've been moving all of the sites across. Most sites have moved across. I've noticed that I know I still come across a couple of sites that haven't moved across. And any new site that I build and create will automatically have SSL on it. So let's have a talk about how you can, or why you wouldn't want to use a plugin to do this. Yes, you can go to the plugin directory. You can find a plugin called Really Simple SSL, for example, and you turn it on and pretty much it basically just works. One of the reasons I don't like using plugins, and I do like plugins, I think plugins absolutely have a place in your WordPress development lifecycle, but one of the reasons I don't like using plugins is they can add load to the site, they can slow your site load time down, which is going to give you a penalty for your SEO. They require constant updating, so if someone comes along and does an update on the plugin, you need to update it, you need to make sure you keep them updated. And if the plugin creator goes out of business or decides they're not going to maintain that plugin anymore, you're going to have to find another one to replace it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with aging code on your site, which becomes a vector for attack against your site. So that's why I don't like using plugins or look for other ways to do things other than using a plugin. And specifically when you can do most of the functionality within the WordPress framework itself, you should absolutely be using that rather than putting on something to do something that the framework automatically does. It's a little, there's a few more steps that you have to go through in WordPress to make it happen, whereas that plugin I mentioned, Really Simple SSL, you turn it on, it pretty much does it for you. But let's go through how you do it. So there's two parts to the picture. One is your hosting provider or your hosting platform. That absolutely needs to serve SSL. It needs to be configured so that you can have SSL traffic coming to the server and it will get to your website. And the second part is your WordPress install. So what I'm going to do today is have a look at this using ISPConfig, which is the hosting panel that I use for my websites. In the fullness of time, I will do one for cPanel. What you should do though is contact your hosting provider. If you're on cPanel, contact your hosting provider and ask them if your sites are set up. If you're trying to do this, make sure that your hosting is set up to use SSL and that you can use it with your websites. cPanel, as standard, will offer free Let's Encrypt SSL certificates for your websites. Not all hosting providers turn that on though, so you do need to make sure you know what your package includes. Otherwise, you are going to have to go and grab yourself a certificate and have it installed manually on your server. And you can speak to your hosting provider about that, or if you'd like a hand, get in touch with me and maybe I can give you a hand there as well. But in this case, I'm using ISPConfig and it does provide free SSL certificates, Let's Encrypt SSL certificates to my clients. So I'm going to log into my hosting panel first before I even touch WordPress at this point. From the front end, you'll see that I've got a couple of sites configured. The one that we're working on is testing.askcharlieletham.com. I'm going to click on that, and that gives you the basic setup for your site. And you'll notice that we've got SSL and Let's Encrypt SSL have not been checked. So we are going to check them because we want to make sure that we can get SSL into this site. It's no use sending traffic to the web server that the web server can't translate, is a good word to use for that. I'm going to click save, and the button's going to come up and it's going to go off and save that. It takes a couple of seconds because it does have to update databases and create certificates. So it goes out to the Let's Encrypt server. It says, can we have a certificate for this domain name, please, or this website address? That will create the certificate, send it back to us, and the software then installs it on the server. You don't see any of that happening. You can't inspect the certificate. It is just there, especially once we get down to this point. And you'll notice that we've now got SSL and Let's Encrypt SSL enabled. Now if I come back to my website, I'm just going to press, there we go. We're logged into the dashboard using HTTP. We can tell that because it's come up with not secure. It's got this big stop sign here saying, hey, you've got a problem, you're not secure. And if I go and visit the front of the site, it says not secure. Yeah, okay. It's like I said, this is just a site I've just set up to begin with for this video alone. So it says not secure. So back in your WP admin, go down to settings, and just under general settings, in the menu general settings, in the right hand panel, the grey panel to the side, where it says WordPress address and site address, just put HTTPS in each of those. So replace the HTTP colon with HTTPS colon on both of them. Save the changes. Now it's going to log me out because I have actually changed the site address of the server. Now the first thing you'll notice is it's dropped me back into the login screen, and up here we now have the little padlock. So we're secure already, and I'm going to be blurring this out so you can't see my username or password. Sorry guys. And we're logged back in, and you'll see it says up here we're secure. I just go to the front end of the site and click go. You'll see here that it hasn't picked up that we're HTTPS. It's not redirecting the HTTP to the HTTPS like it did for WP admin. It does it automatically for WP admin, but it doesn't do it for the front end of the site. So there's a little bit more we have to do. What I can show you here before I do that next step is if I put HTTPS on here, sorry, I don't mean to have that roll down. You'll see that it does come up as secure, but I can also put HTTP and it doesn't automatically redirect my site to this HTTPS site. That's something that we have to do. So that will be the next step of this video. There are a couple of ways to do this with ISPConfig. It is really easy. What we do is click on our ISPConfig tab, and under our website, which we had just put the SSL, Let's Encrypt SSL on, go to redirect. You'll see there's a rewrite HTTP to HTTPS. Click on that and say save. Let that write to the database and enable the changes. And that's now saved off. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the front end of our site and we will refresh, and we're now redirected. We've got our secure padlock. So that's how you do it with ISPConfig. If you don't have ISPConfig and you can't get into your hosting provider and they're not being very helpful with it, you can use your htaccess file on your server to force the redirect. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back into my website and I'm going to turn off the force redirect here let it change. So that's saved off. So now what we should do is go back and just check to see whether that's still redirecting. So I'm going to force a refresh. I hold down the Shift key and hit the refresh button on that. Now you'll see that this is still giving us a secure connection. This is because your browsers will cache and they won't go out and check again. They'll just take what's in the cache. It's really annoying. So one way to test it is bring up a private window. Once you get to this point, you can bring up private windows or you can go to a new browser. I tend to use private windows. And just enter your site. There we go. So your private window is telling you that it's not secure. So we'll close that private window down. We're going to ignore this window for the time being because it has cache. And I don't want to have to go and reset all my downloaded files and stuff. It's a nightmare. So what you do have to do there, so the other way of doing this then is to use the htaccess file on your server to do the redirect. Now to do that, you should use either FTP, I'm using FileZilla here, or log in using your control panel and use the file browser. The one thing I will recommend that you do is you take a copy of your htaccess file before you do anything. And I've just got my downloads file here in my left-hand panel. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a copy of this, download it. So I have a copy on my local drive. And then what I'm going to also do is call this .bkup. So I have a copy of it on the server as well. And then I'm going to re-upload the copy I just took. So now I've got 2 copies on the server and I have a backup on my hard drive. Really important you do this in case something goes wrong and you can fix it up. Okay, so then what we'll do is we are going to view and edit that file. Now, if you can't do a view and edit out of your FTP program, download it like I have done, open it up in a notepad as I am about to do here. And this is your .htaccess file. So this has just opened up Notepad++. I recommend Notepad++ if you're doing something like this. It's a nice lightweight editor that has some nice extra bells and whistles in it if you need them. Now, you're going to have to add some lines to this file. What you need to do is at the top of the file, above the line that says hatch begin, put a couple of lines in. And I have these in, yes I do, I have them in my buffer already because I copied them. I will put these down in the notes for this video, but you need to copy these 3 lines exactly as they appear, paste them into your .htaccess file. It doesn't matter if you've got extra lines in there, I remove them so they look a little nicer. And what that says is it says, take everything that comes in and rewrite it to HTTPS. So anything that comes in on this site now will be redirected to HTTPS. Save it. I did a Control-S to save, and it's going to ask me if I want to re-upload it. Yes, I do. That's reloaded. Now we bring up our site here, and I'm going to go back to that incognito window. And I'm going to put in our site name, and you'll see that it's automatically redirected to the secure server. So there's 2 ways you can actually redirect everything from HTTP to HTTPS. Just going to recap on what we've done so that it makes a little bit more sense. The first thing we did on our server, and if you don't have ISPConfig and you've got another one, I will do videos on a couple of the other hosting panels as well in the fullness of time. No promises as to when I'll get to those. The first thing we did was on the server itself, we made sure that we had SSL and we had a Let's Encrypt certificate enabled. We saved that off, and then we went to our settings in our WordPress admin dashboard under General, and we made the site address and the WordPress address a https colon instead of http colon, and that then allowed us to visit the site on https. The final thing we did was to, and I'm going to show you in ISPConfig, under redirect on our panel, we rewrote and we redirected all the traffic that goes to HTTP to HTTPS. Now what that does is, if you've got things cached out there, if they're in the search engines already and it already has HTTP on it, when it hits the server, it will automatically set it to HTTPS, so that people will get that nice little padlock, up in their address bar. So we did that in ISPConfig, and then we also, as an example for those of you that can't do that sort of thing in your hosting panel, created, sorry about that popping down, modified the htaccess file so that we added 3 extra lines in to do the redirection. Now you don't need to do both. I'm just going to delete that from mine, by the way, and we're just going to re-upload it. You don't need to do both, you choose one or the other. And I'm just going to make my server do all the work here. I don't have to worry about htaccess getting messed up then. Okay, so that's how you can enable SSL on your WordPress websites. It's not difficult. You do need to follow the steps. Certainly it's going to be quicker if you put on the plugin, but if you put on the plugin, you then need to maintain it. And if it breaks, then how do you fix it? Whereas this is kind of foolproof once it's on and working. I hope that was useful to you. Please do leave a note below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if there's any other hints and tips and tricks even that you'd like to see using WordPress specifically, or anything else. And I'll see if I can accommodate them. And also please remember to like and subscribe this video and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any other episodes. Thanks very much. Bye.